Hello, I'm Marc, I'm the host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and this is a special series during this COVID crisis where we'll be sharing the learnings, best practices, and failures and successes of all the channel leaders throughout the tech industry. So sit back, listen, and enjoy. Hi, I'm Marc, I'm the host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have Eamon Moore from Hikari Data Solutions. How are we doing, Eamon?
I'm great, yeah, thanks for having me, Marc.
No, thanks so much for coming on. So, two things. I really wanted to get your views because I think you're in a unique position for the listeners around sort of processes and data and what you're seeing from the market. So could you just give us a bit of a flavour of what you're seeing from your customers around how they're sort of managing sort of processes and data and what they're doing about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I think, it's been obviously a really tough time for a lot of customers over the last few weeks. And it's more so that they've been finding their feet. So a lot of them are working with some great managed service providers to get up and running with activity to make sure that's all in place. And now that things have settled down a bit, we're seeing a lot of growth in terms of customers and managed service providers themselves coming to us looking for assistance with that customer base around the process piece. And I think what we're seeing in the market really is a lot of SMEs in particular perhaps weren't really set up to run a business remotely, and you'll know, and a lot of your audience will know this, there's a big difference between working remotely and managing and running a business remotely. So I think a lot of the flaws and inefficiencies in those processes, perhaps in the intelligence and business intelligence that are available to customers, is being highlighted now because it's a whole different work scenario. So we're getting a lot of calls from customers or even customers we pitched to and weren't ready to make the leap a number of months ago, perhaps saying, do you remember you were talking about bringing in business intelligence, dashboards, reporting? I now need that more than ever because you don't have the luxury of putting your head around the corner to your finance person, to your operations person, grabbing them into a meeting room and saying, let's talk about this, or, as still is the case with a lot of businesses, let's look at this print up and go through it line by line. So we're seeing a fundamental change there and the realization that the digital aspect of this needs to be now put in place. So that's what we're seeing in the market, and we're starting to see a lot of growth there.
Yeah, do you know what, Eamon? I can echo that. I'm a small business, 20 staff. Was I, clued up about remote working? I knew about remote working, but were we ready for it? Absolutely not. And it's really interesting what you said around the processes, because that's where we've really struggled. It's not so much, could our guys work from home? Yeah, they could. But what we've really struggled in is actually, like you said, accounts. Oh, we couldn't go around the corner this and get this signed. Yeah. No, we can't. It's been an absolute tsunami of problems around processes and data points and how we get log into things, and even just workflows around sort of pipeline meetings. It's been really, really difficult. What can the customers, what are you advising your customers to do about sort of getting their house in order around that, when they're more worried about how they can actually keep the lights on rather than actually trying to sort these processes out as they go along?
Yeah, but I think that's the challenge, Mark, insofar as that, there is underlying issues there that people are trying to address in terms of keeping the business going, keeping the pipeline going, keeping the cash coming in, etc. And some are better placed than others. Some businesses is still going well. Others have a good cash flow in terms of a cash pile that they may be able to draw on. And of course, it's the great government supports that we're seeing in Ireland, and I suppose you guys see in the UK as well. But it is, you got to take some time just to sit back and look at what's going to happen post-COVID. A lot of people talk about the new normal, and this kind of piece as well. But you really, if you can get things stabilized, if you can get things secured with your staff, you got to think what's going to happen thereafter. Like, I look at a lot of the process. We work a lot in the professional services sector, so legal, accounting, finance. If you look at the way things are carried out in those industries at the moment, there is a realization that it just can't go on. Like, if you look at things, the way documents are handled, the way these processes are handled when they're dealing with individuals or other firms that you're dealing with in a transaction, whatever. I think that's the realization now, is that as employers, we all, from a best practice point of view and a health and safety point of view, not only do we have to put these processes in and have this all available to us from an efficiency point of view, but also from a health and safety point of view. Like, the onus will be on us to make sure that we're not putting our staff and other people's staff in a predicament that they shouldn't be in when there is a digital answer to that process.
Yeah, because there's so many things to think about around that. We had it before where even let's just take printers for an example. Printers, we always have a little small printer, etc. Then we went to this massive, perfect solution. We're all singing, all dancing, massive thing. Now I'm sort of thinking, if we don't have that office, why have we got this massive thing in this office where we don't need the space? So it's really difficult to work out actually what's going to be needed sort of post-COVID, because I'm looking at some of the processes in our own company. I'm thinking, that's not going to work. That's just not going to work post-COVID. So what do you think customers can, obviously there's worried about the keeping the lights on and keeping sales going, but what do you think are the key sort of processes maybe they should actually be thinking about now, or it's going to be available to them when we actually come, maybe go back in the office? What should they be thinking about?
Yeah, but I think a lot of what we want to see is around paper, and about how we can get away from the paper chase, so to speak, in terms of that reliance on a document being printed, a report being printed. We're seeing great success at the moment. I think on one of your last podcasts I listened to, you were talking about remote working and using the likes of Teams or Zoom, etc. Like we're seeing a lot of that across our customer base. Obviously, we've a very strong relationship with Microsoft, so we see that in a lot of our customers. And simple things like the ability within a Teams environment to be able to share a document or report that's there, whether it's the likes of a Power BI report, whether it's an Excel report or whatever. And I think that's the opportunity. We have to get people away from that idea that it's pen and paper, to make the markings on it, that if you can bring that into a digital process, that's one thing I think certainly. And you're also seeing other areas around like workflows, anything that we put in place there. It could be around the transfer of funds, in terms of bank accounts, around fraudulent things. That's all being highlighted at the moment in terms of there are discrepancies there in the process that can cause some difficulties for businesses. So you're just seeing simple things like that. Now obviously there's large scale ends of businesses that you look at that process piece, but I'd start simple. Look at the things that are costing you time and money at the moment. And now that you've taken that step back, that there is a bit of a breather at times when you're out of the work environment and you've seen the challenge of a process trying to be delivered across multiple locations. They're the ones that I would start to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of work for your own business, where are you seeing the opportunities? You mentioned earlier maybe States is potentially a good market for you now. The States.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, and that's been a relatively new market for us this year. I spent a lot of time over there last year, building up relationships and some pipeline, and it's really come true for us now. In fact, over March and April, I was just reviewing the figures there. 70% of our business now has been from the States over the last 2 months. So that's a huge shift for us. Wow. So it's a lot of it to do around our business intelligence business, a lot of to do around data. The partner piece, I think, has really come true. We're looking at learning content for customers in terms of getting their users and their partners up to date in terms of the latest technologies, particularly around Power BI, which is a big part of our business. So it's come good in that piece. And I think, back to what I was saying earlier, I think you get to a point where for MSPs now really want to help, and they realize that it's not in their arsenal. And and I think that's right. When we had our previous business, our managed service business, we had two divisions, and we had a business intelligence and data division, and we also had our managed service business, and the two never crossed over in a sense of skill sets. They're different skill sets. It's a different way of approaching business and solving challenges. So thankfully now a lot of those MSPs are reaching out for a trusted partner, and that's driving a lot of business for us.
Where is those leads and opportunities coming from? Are they finding you? Was this people that you were prospecting before, or inquiries or nurtured, or where suddenly this influx of work come from?
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit of everything really. We're getting inbound inquiries via our website. People reaching out to us that way. LinkedIn has always been a good tool. In particular for me, a lot of my roles in my various businesses have always been around business development, and it's probably one of my strengths. So LinkedIn has been a good tool, and of course we connected on LinkedIn via the CRN list as well. And then there's a bit of prospecting been going on over the last year or so, and various connections that I've been developing. I've been traveling over there with different companies and for conferences and different engagements with Microsoft, etc. over the last 5 years. So they're probably just connections that we've made over that period as well. It's quite interesting. I think that even though all the kind of the craziness that's going on, and we're all stuck at home, it is giving people a bit of time to reflect. You are taking a bit of time to look at what's the next thing, how do I change things. And I think that's what's happening in any business, and that's where we're seeing with a lot of those MSPs are now thinking, well, how can I continue to add value to my customers? Because customers need their service providers more than ever. And that's that's even been being helpful in terms of, and being flexible in terms of payment options, in terms of cutting back costs or doing whatever, but also challenges. And I think, they need the likes of MSPs, and in turn, MSPs are reaching out to their partners to say, how can you help me resolve these issues that they're having, and help me help my customer to get through these tough times. It's been really interesting. I've always been a big fan of partner to partner. It hasn't been. I remember in our last business, Eamon, it wasn't a success because we always had a conflicting managed service business. So that part of the partner piece isn't going to work, and didn't work at that time. But now, since we've exited that business and we exclusively work on the likes of business intelligence and productivity solutions, it makes it all much easier now for all concerned.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And my last question, I know you're not a world health expert or anything, but in your opinion, where do you see the landscape over the next 3 to 6 months? When do you think we'll get back to the new normal, or what do you think is going to be the new normal? That's probably a better question.
Yeah, well, I think until obviously there's a vaccine found, we're not going to be doing much. We're talking here in Ireland. It looks like an extension to the lockdown that we have coming now at the start of May again. And I think things will fundamentally change. Like, if I look at people's approach to this, as much as we all want to get out and meet people again and socialize, etc., I think people will take a stand back and realize that they can't do things the way they did before. And again, as I said earlier, about as employers and business owners, I think the onus will be on us again to put in these processes and change the way we do business in order to facilitate the way people are looking at things now. I also think remote working has always been there, but it's proven now. And one of the things that I think will come out of this, and of all the bad things that are happening, I suppose I always tend to look at maybe some of the outcomes and the benefits. And we like the 3 or 4 months that we might be remote working, managing businesses, running business. If you think about it, we have ironed out a lot of the kinks. So it's not a case like, in a disaster recovery plan where you say, okay, let's take this Friday in a particular month to run out our business continuity plan and make sure everything works. Like, we will have done this for a number of weeks, a number of months. We'll have ironed out things. We'll have changed things. We'll have changed the way we've interacted with our customers. And that, for me, will be a lot of the new norm, because I think some people will want that flexibility now. And perhaps we'll look back and we'll say, did we have to travel into work and get stuck in traffic all those years? Did we have to fly in all these flights or whatever? And I think, for me, like, you'll still have to do that face-to-face piece. Like, we're raising some investment for another business that we have at the moment, and I know that check won't be signed until we have a face-to-face, but a lot of it's been done over calls like this. And I think that, for me, will be a big part of the change. And we'll look back and it's I think there'll be the way remote aspects are going as well. I think will be a big and a welcome change, to the working environment, because I know in Dublin in particular, office space is at a premium. They can't build anymore. They're struggling to build more. Employees want that flexibility. So I think we'll come out of the other end a better society and a better business community.
Thanks for joining us and listening to another episode of our Channel Chat podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard and are listening on iTunes, please could you give us a review and subscribe in order to get the newest episodes as soon as they're released. Otherwise, as always, we release an episode every Thursday at midday, so hopefully you can join us then.